to take the exam?
I didn't want to take it until like February.
Okay. So that might mean that, excuse me, that you're going to have to take that new exam. And I'll find out for sure with Miss Cardenas. She knows. Actually, I don't know if she'll text me back, but just out of curiosity. Let me see. Okay. So where I'm showing you where I'm navigating to, you'll want to make note of it, because a lot of really great resources are available on the TEA website for the individual subject areas. For instance, the TEKS. Now you don't have to memorize the TEKS, but you do have to look through and be familiar with the concepts that you are to be, going over with the students. So the TEKS are the things that they should leave our classroom with. And more often than not, the exam is going to ask you questions, and it's going to be about the students utilizing TEKS or trying to, gain mastery of certain TEKS, and what instructional strategies you use, what instructional supports you would use in order to get them there. So have you taken a look at the standards? Yeah, I mean the TEKS.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so let's take a look at the overview, because the PE exam is much like the PPR exam in that it covers EC through 12, right? So you have to do early child through high school. And so it's important to know the things that are required of you. So what is this? Back to the list. Okay, here we are, kindergarten. So what types of things would you be doing with your kindergarten students? So you're learning about the fundamentals of movement. And so that's really important for you to know as a test taker where the kids should be based on their growth and development, because they will ask you questions based on the age group or the grade level. You should know what they should be focusing on and what they would be able to do. So it's important for you to certainly to review these concepts. And the way that I would study these is for each of them, sort of, if you could make like an overarching theme associated with that age group or grade level. Like, okay, so in the beginning, we really start with fundamentals of movement, just like, standing with one foot up, being able to do things. And a lot of the reason we do this, not just because it's appropriate for their grade level, but it's also for us to identify any deficiencies or developmental issues that they might have. If we see a student has difficulty climbing steps with alternating feet and they're in the second grade, that might mean something developmentally that we would refer out to special ed. Always and every time following rules, procedures, safe practices, and PE should be used and the way that the state wants for it to be sort of implemented is for a place for social development, really to begin and take stronghold. So those social emotional development skills, self-management, the ability to work with other people, the ability to work independently, to follow rules and safety procedures. Those are all skills that are necessary that we need to continue to build on. And if we do it correctly, if the PE teacher is really putting in a lot of social and emotional skills, the kids will become better humans, because you learn a lot of those basic skills to just being a human being in your PE class, getting along with people, taking turns, shared space, sharing equipment. There's a lot of social emotional lessons and opportunities for them that can be sought after in the physical education classroom. And that's what we want. We definitely want teachers to take every opportunity to build those social emotional skills. And with each grade level, we're strengthening that, we're strengthening those skills. Okay. So you'll see that they continue to develop basic control in first grade, fundamental and health-related fitness components, strength, endurance, flexibility, throwing and catching. So it gets a little bit like more complex as we move forward on building on the same ones, just like it does scaffolding of those skills, building on them. More social development rules. We have two more of them here. Cooperation, respecting others, resolving conflicts is really important skill that all students need to learn, and they should be learning it in every classroom that they have. But when you have a reading teacher, there might not be like a huge opportunity for resolving conflict when you're doing reading. So the opportunities for these social and emotional skills lessons within a PE class are just so myriad and really important for the physical education teacher to take advantage of. Now, did you were you able to, or do you know how to find this page again, or did you need me to email you the link to it?
Please email the link.
Absolutely. So anything that we go over today, I'll just go ahead and email you a list with descriptions and links to each of them, and that way you can find them more readily.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Am I able to get a copy of the meeting as well, so I can reference it?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Let me make sure that it is being, yes, it is. So absolutely, I can send this to you and you can have that for your review.
Thank you.
So here we are at second grade. So you see, like it starts with like, you did the studying for special education. So that we begin with the very, very basics, movements, and basics like how to be a little human. And then it gets a little bit more like complex as we continue to go until we get to senior year, and we'll see how complex it gets there.
Is there a screen you're looking at right now?
Yes, is it not showing it to you?
No, I just see your face.
Oh no, sorry. I'm so sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm so sorry. So here we have so were you able to see it at all the whole time or just right now?
Just now.
Oh, thank goodness. I was gonna have a heart attack if the whole time I was talking it was just my face. Okay. So in second grade, they have to learn to demonstrate fundamentals of movement skills and mature form in locomotive skills. So like I said, each one of these TEKS is going to have like an overarching, like this is the goal that they need to reach in order to like have successfully completed second grade. And so we want for them to perform mature locomotive skills. Now, I always tell my students, and I am not an expert in all content areas, I'm like a semi-expert, but I don't know all the words that are particular to each content. That would be like really crazy. But I sort of know what locomotive skills are, but then again, I don't. And the reason I say I don't is because I can't explain it to you in a way that gives an example, which means that my understanding is not strong enough of this idea. And that's bad, because this is a big part of second grade TEKS. And so I'm going to look it up. Powered rail vehicle. Okay. Repeating to or affecting locomotion. So I'm still not understanding quite. Pulling trains, like locomotive skills. I like running and so my point in going through this is that when you go through these, if you find a concept or an idea that you aren't familiar with, there's no shame in that. Nobody knows everything about anything. That's something you realize if you're wise, that I don't know everything, So looking things up that you don't understand is going to be key to you doing well in this while you're studying for this. Because right now what I'm doing is giving you resources and how I would like for you to sort of look through them. So I don't want for you to memorize any of this stuff, but I would like for you to read through, do a, a critical reading, which means that you're going to be asking yourself, do I know what that means and what that looks like in a physical education classroom? And
Okay.
so if you don't, certainly look those things up. The second thing that I would like for you to do, again, repeating myself, is that for each of the grade levels, sort of think of that overarching theme, like this is what they have to achieve in order to complete mastery of the skills in grade 2. And so in looking through this one, we see that it's much of the same buildup, that they have to acquire knowledge and skills for movement that provide the foundation for enjoyment, continued social development. And it might be important to look at how the wording changes. I'm going to go back just to grade 1 and reread that thing. In physical education, student requires acquire the knowledge and skills for movement that provide the foundation of enjoyment, continued social development through physical activity, and access to physically active life. The student exhibits a physically active lifestyle and understands the relationship between physical activity and health throughout the lifespan. So that's going to be another controlling idea to what your job is as an instructor, to correlate that the physical education activity or that physical activity with health and the ideas of health. So you'll also be giving your students that connection and building on that connection in a more meaningful way. Your health lessons will become more heavy and more detailed as they get older, commiserate with their understanding, right? So at the kindergarten level, it's going to be a very general understanding. Physical activity helps your heart be better. Running helps your heart, but then later you'll actually be talking about the cardiovascular system and in a more complex way with your students. And that's all of the progression of the ideas and the skills are going to be commiserate or on par with the progression of the growth, the natural growth and development of your students, right? It's all logical progression. So as you read through these, they'll become easier. You'll see like, okay, they just added this little bit for this section, this little bit for this section to make it, to build on it more. So we're going to jump to 4th and then we'll move to middle school and high school. So this is 4th grade. Physical education students acquire the knowledge and skills for movement that provide foundation for enjoyment, continued social development through physical activity, and access to physically. Okay, this is the same sentence in the beginning for each one. 4th grade students should learn to identify components of health-related fitness, because that's going to be a big one for you to remember. 4th grade is going to be identifying components of health-related fitness. That's more than just saying or than just being able to do locomotor skills like running or relay. I'm assuming just from gathering and our readings that locomotor skills means that you're able to play maybe in a baseball game where you hit the ball and then you run off to the first base of some sort. Manipulating the dynamics of situation with your body control and whatnot. But we're getting more to a more sophisticated use and understanding of physical activity and health related components. So as the questions ask you, you have to remember what's appropriate and what is necessary for them in that grade level.
Okay.
So looking through, you'll see movement, knowledge, and skills. The first one for kindergarten was movement, but it wasn't as in depth. You see how we're like super in depth. Now they're doing hand dribble, foot dribble, like racquetball. They weren't doing all that in kindergarten, but it would be silly because I have a kindergartner right now and I happen to know for a fact that she gets very frustrated when she can't dribble the ball. So, and so that wouldn't be something that or like volleyball, we wouldn't do that with kindergarten students. So another one, another movement, physical activity, name components of health-related fitness such as strength, endurance, and flexibility. And so I go in and I visit campuses all over Texas. And in fact, I'm in Houston right now visiting campuses. But so some of my students are invariably physical education teachers, and I'll go in and watch them when they have a fourth grade class. And so
Okay.
part of my looking at it is like, are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? And most of the times, I mean, actually all the times they are, but I'll go in, and the way that it works, and I love it as an English teacher when I see this, but sometimes the school, for whatever reason, doesn't have a dry erase board in the gym, but at elementaries, typically you will find dry erase boards there still in the gym. And it's really important because when they're talking about these ideas of strength, endurance, flexibility, it's important for the physical education teacher to define those words, to have direct instruction with their class on what strength means. What does endurance mean? And have an actual vocabulary instruction where you do what you would do if you were in an English class, what you would do if you were in a science class with that idea, and then model it and that be part of your lesson. And then to revisit those words all throughout, because we're trying not just to do that activity of flexibility with them, but to understand what flexibility is, how, stretching adds to flexibility, how it adds to warming up and helps prevent, muscle pulls and injury later on. And so all of those ideas build up on each other, and we need the students to start using academically specific language in all of their content areas, because it brings up their academic proficiency and their oral language proficiency. So I've gone in and I've seen them talk about flexibility and balance and then define those words and do different exercises that take flexibility and balance. And then, but then not even tell them which one is which, like which activity. So that they went through stations, and then based on the students' knowledge of what they did on that activity, at the end, the PE teacher said, okay, so was that an activity in flexibility or in what was the balance? And the student will have to say, oh, well, that one was a balance because it did this and this. And it showed, it was a very easy informal assessment of the students' understanding of those concepts. It was really great. And it was that all participation was 100%. And it was clear that the students understood not only the definition of these new concepts, but how to apply them now in their life. So looking through all of these, making sure that you understand all of the verbiage that they are utilizing, because they are going to use this verbiage on the exam in those scenarios.
Okay.
Okay. Let me see. I'm trying to look at. Okay, so part of the social development here is potential risks associated with unsafe movement and improper use of equipment. So another one of those flexibility type things, stretching lessons would be about, preventing unsafe movement through the use of stretching and always and every time, safety is the first, safety even before learning. Safety of the students, utilizing stuff, safety of the situation, but safety is always first. So there's like a hierarchy of needs, and student safety is number one, safety, physical, and then emotional safety in their learning environment, that there's no bullying and that's a safe environment emotionally as well. So 5th grade, we have them. So it's the same sentence throughout the first paragraph, which is nice. And so you need to be providing or building a foundation of enjoyment. That's the overarching idea of class PE from K through 12. The overarching idea is that it should provide a really strong foundation for enjoyment of physical activity. So it shouldn't be torturous and awful, like, oh my God, we have to run miles today. Should be
Mhm.
slowly building a foundation of enjoyment, right?
Yes.
And then the second thing that it needs to do is build social development, building that social and emotional development through physical activity, through sports playing. And there's that, it's so easy to be done because there's so many opportunities for social and emotional development in the PE classes. And then the last thing is that you to make that connection to the physically active lifestyle and the health throughout your life. So those are the huge overarching ideas overall K through 12. And then they gave you the specifics of each grade level underneath. So for fifth grade students, demonstrate competence in improved accuracy, manipulative skills in dynamic situations. So more game-like situations. We get into more organized sports. In the beginning,
Okay.
we do team sports and or play, volleyball, or they might have begun to play basketball, but I believe it's fourth and fifth grades where they start to hone those game-like situations.
Okay.
And so I would say student continue to assume responsibility for their own safety and the same others. Prove fitness based on the principle of frequency, intensity, and time. Students learn etiquette of participation and can resolve conflicts during games and sports in acceptable ways. So we get more into the, again, fifth grade is, I would believe the overarching idea would be like, it's the beginning of teaching them game etiquette, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And they begin to really utilize all of those little lessons on social emotional development about sharing and resolving conflict in these game-like situations.
Okay.
Let me see. Movement, again, would demonstrate controlled balance on a variety of objects, board, stilts, scooters, and skates.
Mm.
Yeah. Hop, step, jump, fundamental locomotor skills. Oh, here they define them for us. I knew running had to have been one of them, and I was just guessing, but like, so running is a locomotor skills, dodging a ball, like hopscotch, I would assume. I would imagine it's any sustained motion.
Okay.
Let me see. So you would be identifying appropriate fitness goals in this grade level, which is different. So starting to talk about having like fitness routines, lifelong fitness routines. And that's really important because honestly, we didn't do that back when I was in school, and I have zero lifelong fitness routines,
Mhm.
It wasn't something that someone told me I needed to do. It was like, if you want to play a sport, you have to do these things. And so like, I would do the things necessary to play a sport. And then when I didn't play that sport anymore, then I didn't do the fitness required to do that. And so, but I know that that wasn't something really instilled in me. And if you do begin to talk about it and to highlight the importance, then the students, it becomes something that they think about every day and that they, start to make action on. Okay, we get into more into depth on like the body systems, right? Describe common skeletal problems and the effect of the body, such as spine curvatures. And I believe that this is also the grade level that they test for scoliosis, that the nurse tests for
Oh, wow.
scoliosis.
Okay.
Actually, my mom's a nurse. Let me ask her really quickly because I'm pretty sure. Um, uh, So yeah, I know that it either that or in the 6th grade, in any event, we start talking about it. Not just so that they learn about it, but they'll be tested soon, and so they can start keeping, a watch
Mhm.
on it as well. It's actually quite common now. This is important. The describing of the respiratory system in smoking, and then the changes that happens to them. We begin to start talking to them about the actual physical effects of drug use on the body and on your ability to continue with the physical activity necessary to lead that, healthy lifestyle. Okay, here we are, social development. Okay, it gets pretty specific. Describe fundamental components and strategies used in net wall, invasion, target, and fielding games. Such as
Mm.
basic positions, goalie, offense, defense. So they weren't kidding when they said they were really getting into the specifics of each of the sports, and the proper, rules and etiquette, socially accepted ways of remaining calm, identifying problems, listening to others, generating solutions, choosing a solution that is acceptable to all. So this is like a huge thing, like for them to learn. This is a huge goal, life goal. I would venture to say a lot of our 5th grade PE teachers failed some of us on this one. But these are, we need to learn to do these, and this is something that we are supposed to be highlighting for them. Acceptable ways of remaining calm. So not only providing lessons before they're in the situations within the class where they would, get heated, but so talking about it beforehand, in those previous years, the 4th grade, 3rd grade, about how, tempers and emotions and understanding ourselves, and then having them apply those things once, as needed, using the sportsman skills.
Mhm.
Okay, let me see. How do I go back to the main one? Is it this one? Oh, yes, it is. So we'll look at the overarching, and there's nothing. Okay, so you'll see that the first definition of what physical education is for a student, it is acquiring that foundation of enjoyment. That's the skills and movement that provide a foundation for the enjoyment. Continued social development and access to physically active lifestyle, and then again making that strong relationship connection between physical activity and health throughout the lifespan. That's the goal always of the PE instruction, of the PE teacher who should be doing that. But specifically in grades 6 through 12, students should understand in greater detail the function of the body, learn to measure their own performance more accurately. So this is a big change. We're now having them self-assess their performance in
Okay.
any of these things. So that's a big difference, a big change in the skill that is needed in the junior high, based on from elementary to junior high. And develop plans for improvement. So we're having them understand the concepts in greater detail. We're having them practice assessing or monitoring their performance more accurately, and then involving them. And this is important, because in order to get motivation, you have to involve the person in choices. So involving them in plans for improvement. They learn to use technology such as heart monitors to assist in measuring and monitoring their own performance. So that's important also, that we're actually giving them the tools in this grade level to learn to identify what's healthy, what's normal, what's cause for concern as far as like heart rhythms and remember that all Texas exams are going to be from Utopia ISD, which means that every PE teacher is going to have all of the heart monitors necessary for everyone to participate in this monitoring thing. Now, whether or not that's true for school districts, that PE teachers have access to all of that, I don't know. But they're supposed to, in theory, because this is what this says. And so for the purposes of the exam, if it asks that the educator wants to increase, the student's assessment of their progress and heart health, then it wouldn't be an issue at all for you to get access to all of the equipment necessary for them to do that monitoring, because it's like no holds bar. You have access. You're a millionaire and you have every support at your fingertips to do the things they said in this legal document, because this is a legal document that this is law, the Texas Administrative Code. So we must be able to do all those things. And sometimes we don't, districts don't because of funding or whatever, but that's never the case on the exam. So design and refine jump rope routine to music. That's something that they must do. You see, I was right. 5th grade is when they monitor and test for scoliosis. So yeah, so that it's important because the state knew, because we're testing them, that it's important that the PE teachers start talking to the students about those things, because some of them are going to be diagnosed with it in 5th grade that year while they're with you. So it's important to discuss it, to discuss what's healthy, what ways we can fix it, early detection, all that stuff. Okay, so let me see. Throwing a variety of objects demonstrating both accuracy, distance, such as frisbee, softball, and basketball. So racquetball again, and they have to, so before, if you remember, the racquetball was just like in 5th grade, like just learn to play with it, like hit it once. But now we're actually having them use forehand and backhand strokes continually. That's a big jump. Like we just barely introduced it last year. Hopefully we did it a couple of times, because now they're having to learn to do it forehand and backhand strokes continuously. And as someone who was the tennis coach, I know for a fact that I got 7th graders who could not forehand or backhand continuously. So, and this was in the 7th, so they didn't get that in the 6th grade, but they might not have had the equipment or the time. And a lot of times, and this is not part of, instruction for this, but the PE teacher does have to do a lot. It does help out in a lot of ways, because they do see all of the students. PE teachers, like their time will be used to take pictures. You know what I mean? Like the students will take pictures for the school, but like via their PE time. So they do lose a lot of instructional days. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but it's like a logistics thing, as far as like if there are things that need to happen and all students need to go through it, it's just easier to do it through PE because the PE teacher sees everyone.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So throw and catch the ball continuously while guarded by an opponent. So more of the basketball. And the reason they do this is because we're leading up 6th grade to the 7th grade, where they are going to have those sports. And they're gonna have their 7th grade, they have the football team. That's when it starts. All of the team sports start, and it's for UIL purposes. And so now it's just not did we prepare you for being like a good teammate and a good representation, a good sportsman, because you are now going to go to other places and represent our school, and we've seen it sometimes. Football players at a high school football game, get into it with ref, and that shouldn't happen, because those students should definitely have been coached on what is acceptable on and off the field or the court. So so it really is a sort of like a shortfall or a fault the education that's happening there. I mean, obviously the kids can just be little jerks, but it is our job to make sure we take every opportunity to give them coping mechanisms to calm down when they're heated, and that they become a good representation of us later on, because after they leave 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, they get on the bus and go, to another city, and we hope that they are being good sportsmen and that they are exhibiting, care for other people. Let me see, following the rules, accept decisions made by game officials, such as schools, teachers, and officials outside of the high school. Outside of the school. And this is important. Like I said, this lesson should be had in every 6th grade, where maybe make the student a judge, and sometimes refs can say, do whatever they want. And it's clearly everybody in the stands knows, like, that was not a good call. It is not for you to say, and you cannot go up and assault a ref because you didn't agree with that. And so those conversations are supposed to be, as far as the state is concerned, and for the purposes of your exam, in the 6th grade, we start having those conversations, and we pose the students, we create opportunities for them to accept decisions. Maybe it's the student that was the judge of the game and they didn't really accept it. Have to. Yeah. So we provide them with opportunities to accept decisions that they might not agree with. Accept successes and performance limitations of self and others. Exhibit appropriate behavior responses and recognize the improvement is possible with appropriate practice. So again, that not being a bad sport if you didn't hit the home run, and you struck out and someone else, like having conversations with the student when we see stuff like this is really important. And that's on us, because they can't accept successes and performance limitations if we don't point them out when they're, being done inappropriately, or when they're being done appropriately. For instance, if we're in the 5th grade and my students are playing a mock basketball, because remember, they don't ever play a whole basketball game, but they might be playing a little game that leads up to basketball, and someone is being an exceptional sport, like someone on the other team made a good shot and they commended them, like, excellent shot. I would take time as the PE teacher to praise that person and the sportsman, to highlight what was good about that. Always take the opportunity to highlight when good behaviors are seen, so that other students can benefit from that learning opportunity. So if a student, missed something and didn't let it get to them and then went back up for the same shot, you would take the opportunity to commend them. I saw that you didn't let that missed shot get you down. You regrouped, got with your teammates, and you went up for it again, and you got it on that set. You see, and so, like, overcoming that mistake or misstep, and then continuing and taking every opportunity to highlight those things. And then also, especially, and this is difficult, PE teachers get away with it a lot more than regular ed teachers, but about, like, highlighting bad behavior as well. Now, I wouldn't so I wouldn't so loudly or draw everyone's attention to something, but if everyone's attention was drawn already to someone exhibiting unsportsmanlike conduct, then I would, or one of those bad behaviors that if let to continue and grow is going to equate to someone making a fool of themselves, during a sporting event in high school, then I'm not going to let that happen, because the students have already seen it and recognized it. And if I do not address it and dismiss it. Now I might get into deeper detail with the student, but by themselves. And that wouldn't be part of like the lesson. But I certainly would say that is not appropriate, sportsmanlike behavior. What do we do when we miss a shot or we don't agree with somebody's, like what is the best way? Maybe you need to take 10 minutes. I mean, not 10 minutes, 10, go over there, take a breather, count to 10, and then come back to us ready, to exhibit that all-star team, attitude. And then but you can't just let it slide, because although we don't want to make a student's bad behavior an object of ridicule, if it is the object of attention already, and it is our job to make sure that they exhibit appropriate responses, we have to address it to everyone.
Okay.
Okay, same first paragraph. Second one is 7th grade students apply similar concepts from one sport or movement setting to another. So we're getting them to become more fluid and make connections among the sports between movements and like defenses, I would believe, you know what I mean? Like the movements in terms of like defensive runs or plays, and offensive and so forth.
Okay.
Students can observe another's individual performance and note its key elements for success. So now our students should be able to assess someone else's performance for those key levels of success. Maybe like commitment or consistency, and identifying those things in students that are doing really well at their own campus and or professional athletes. At this grade level, students participate in physical activity both in and out of school while maintaining a healthy level of fitness as their bodies grow and change. Their knowledge of safety and ability to manage their own behavior is reinforced. And we get more and more into their own behavior because 7th and 8th grade, the students are starting with puberty and they are experiencing body growth and change. Many of the boys will grow several inches during this time period. And the girls will certainly begin to change, and everyone will start to feel funky. And it's sort of the PE teacher's job to make them unfunk, to make them understand that what they're feeling is totally natural, and that everyone is sort of feeling very much the same thing, and that we all have done that, and there'll be more changes and a period of stability after all of the changes. So sort of our job to guide them via knowledge and healthy expression of, of their feelings via physical activity. And sort of utilizing that as a means of coping too, because we know that physical activity definitely helps with stress, with anxiety. And so having the students going through this change in their life, and then having a PE teacher that reinforces like a healthy lifestyle as a means of coping is really important, and something that is invaluable to the students if they have a PE teacher that's doing that. So instruction is more directed towards encouraging the incorporation of physical activity into daily routine and less towards fundamental skill development. So here we have a departure from the fundamental skills, right? Because we've already laid that groundwork from K through 6. And now we're in the more specialized coordinate movements with teammates to achieve team goals. So again, that, like I've said, it's talking about good defense, like looking at a team and seeing their really good defense movement, and then coordinating with their own teammates to achieve similar goals. Let me see. Demonstrate appropriate relationship and opponent to an opponent in a dynamic game situation. So a lot of game situations. Okay, so dances, perform selected folk, country, square, line, creative, and aerobic dances. So this should be happening in all of the PE classrooms. And they also have to design themselves. The students must design and perform a sequence of dance steps. Okay, so demonstrate without cue critical elements in specialized skills related to sports, such as overhand throw for distance, serving and bumping, shooting a basketball, shooting a layup, forehand, backhand. And so in this demonstrating without cue is where you're going to have a whole bunch of kids throwing little hissy fits if they aren't doing well, and where we're going to find a bunch of opportunities to get them to practice those social and emotional skills of, like, you know, being easy on themselves, regrouping, trying again, practicing for accuracy, like listening to advice on maybe changing form, like the way that they're holding the ball or
Okay.
striking the ball. Accept criticism without, getting upset. Make appropriate changes in performance feedback. Another thing that what I was just talking about, where you hear that constructive criticism, that feedback. Maybe your coach told you, well, you only made 2 out of 10 of those free throws because your form is off and you're still breaking your wrists. And so it's not enough for them to just hear you. You need them to make those appropriate changes to their feedback, and they need to be able to do that. We want them, they must be able to do that. It's one of their sort of objectives for 7th grade, is learning not just to hear and accept this criticism in a way that is sportsmanlike, but also to make the appropriate corrections to the errors. Identify and apply a basic biomechanical principles, such as lowering the center of gravity weight, widening the base of support. And these will become important later for them to understand when you have them lifting weights and stuff. You need for them to use proper biomechanical movements so that they don't injure themselves later. Basic offensive, defensive strategies. Let me see. Identify proteins, fats, carbohydrates, waters, vitamins, minerals as key elements found in foods necessary. So we also begin more in depth with instruction on diet. And we speak about diet before, but now really getting into, like, what are the different variables there and what is necessary for optimal body function. And that's what's really important. Like, what is the recipe to making our physical activity as easy and fruitful as possible, giving our body what it needs. Explain the effects of eating and exercise on weight control, self-concept, and performance activity. And the rationale behind beginning this in 7th grade is because, as I described, we're having a lot of students go through changes in their body. Girls might gain weight as a result of entering puberty, while the boys stretch out, and people start feeling strange about their body. And so we need to discuss, what is a healthy self-concept, and how we can, support stress reduction and healthy eating and weight control through minimal physical activity, daily consistent physical activity. But we start that because we really see problems, especially, not just in girls, but in boys too, because boys are have this intense pressure to all look like they're, I don't know, with six packs and they have muscles. And it's like, what are you even talking about? You're a child. Thank you. I never worried of such things, like, ever. But they do worry about that. And so to talk about it more and more as they get older, because they start, girls and boys, restricting themselves from eating things that are necessary to replenish the nutrients that many of them lose in their sporting events. Analyze exercises for their effects on the body, such as beneficial, potentially dangerous. And that's really important as well. Showing them that too much of something or doing it in a haphazard way is potentially dangerous and not beneficial. So like if you want to lift weights and you start and you go, oh, I'm going to go pick up the heaviest weight and I don't know anything about lifting weight, my form's going to be off. I mean, this is like a potentially dangerous situation where I can hurt myself and others. So it's a sometimes serious thing that we need to make sure that we've done the appropriate things beforehand to make it not dangerous. And that's something that we need to instill in all of the kids. And in this grade level, it's important because this is where we have the boys starting to want to lift weights in the 7th grade. So they go into weight room, like with their big brother at the high school and try to lift all this stuff. We need them to know that, you know, there's a rhyme and reason to it all, and they need to be prepared for it. So recognize role of games, sport, and dance in getting to know and understand others. Again, we have the accept decisions made by game officials, such as students, teachers, really honing this in. And this will be in everyone, I believe, until 12th.
Okay.
Okay. In grade 8, although the acquisition of physical fitness and skill development is important, it's still important in this one because remember, it's important through all, but there's more emphasis placed on participation for enjoyment and challenge, both in and out of school in the 8th grade, for enjoyment and challenge. So we really want to get them involved in like team sports. Understanding the need to remain physically active throughout lifestyle, and that's the same one. The same last sentence. But for here, the overarching idea is that we want for them to think of physical activity for enjoyment and challenge. Are you just want to go out and enjoy yourself and play a basketball game, or you're on a team and you're challenging because you're wanting to win. So more team sports for enjoyment and for challenge. Let me see. Demonstrate introductory outdoor pursuit skills such as backpacking, rock climbing, orienteering, which I don't know what that means. A competitive sport in which the participants find their way through various checkpoints across rough country and with the aid of a map and compass. I've never even heard of that.
Me either.
Wow. Okay. Orienteering. Wow. That is a Swedish sport from the 1950s, 1940s. Weird. Okay, so, but we introduced that to them, show them that there are even things that people do outside, like hiking or whatever, which is a physical sport sort of activity, but they do it for enjoyment and or challenge. So remember, that's the theme for this whole year, even though we are still doing physical skill and all that's important. Right now, we're focusing on getting them to think of new ideas of physical activity for enjoyment and challenge. So you could give yourself a canoeing challenge.
Okay.
Let's see. Identify opportunities. Okay, participate in games, sports, dance, and outdoor pursuits in and outside of school based on individual interests or capabilities. And so we could provide opportunities for them. And I think that they do in order to make this happen. Like, I know that my campus has one of my old campuses had a fall festival, and PE classes did like a couple of, dances that performed there. And I'm pretty sure that ticked off this box because they are participating in games and dance in and outdoors. And they get to choose. I think there were several opportunities for different things for them to choose to perform in. So we would be, tasked with creating some of those opportunities for that to happen. At the elementary, they do a family dance night, and it's through the PE classes that each grade level learned a different dance. And then they performed it. We went out, like parents were invited at 6 o'clock. We took picnic stuff. We made picnics, had food, and then the different grade levels performed for us. And then in between each of the grade levels, there was like free dance where the parents got up and danced with the kids and the teachers. And, and it was really cool. But the PE teacher does that, and she does it every year. So, and I believe it's a way of her getting all of these things together, and also doing parental involvement, like really getting that parental involvement. Okay. Distinguish between compliance and non-compliance rules and regulations, and apply agreed upon consequences when officiating. So having the consequences of a student being ejected if they're not, exhibiting control of themselves. Right. Yeah. So having an actual consequence to it and following through with that. Again, accepting the decisions, using peer interaction positively to enhance physical activities and safety, such as encourage friends and join teams. Okay, and lastly, we have high school. And the foundations, this is what everybody has to take. So this is, they only require at the high school 1 PE credit, but some students will have several on their graduating diploma based on if they play team sports and whatnot. But so everyone has to go through this foundations of personal fitness. So again, we have that same, which has been a constant, which is you are providing knowledge of the students with knowledge and skills that help set up a foundation for enjoyment, continued social development through physical activity and access to physically active activities, and then also make that connection between the physical activity and the healthy relationship. Foundations of personal fitness represent a new approach in physical education and the concept of personal fitness. So we're trying to really, it's a last ditch effort for the state to solidify a foundation in personal motivation for fitness. And I have to say, I don't have it. I wish I did, but I don't have that personal motivation for fitness. So I think this is very important for it to actually work, because it's important. I mean, it just really makes life healthier for you. The basic purpose of this course is to motivate students to strive for lifetime professional fitness. It's not professional, goodness, personal, not professional. With an emphasis on health related concepts. And so that's the important part. It's not like, here's what you're going to need in order to get to the NFL. It's like, no, this is what you need in order to make it to your 80s, or 90s, and to be able to still walk then, do you want to still be able to walk? And if so, then you need to keep up a healthy lifestyle. The knowledge and skills taught in this course include teaching students about the process of becoming fit, as well as achieving some degree of fitness within the class. And this is important. This line is important because we will get students at the 9th grade who are already unfit, who come to us not meeting the definition of fit. And so we have to provide a deep understanding of what fit is. It doesn't mean that you're a toothpick skinny. I am a toothpick skinny and I am unfit.
Mhm.
It's not what you look like. There's a real definition. What is your, oxygen saturation after doing vigorous activity? That is an indicator of fitness. So really understanding that and then trying to help the students in that class period achieve some of those fitness goals during the class. And that's the overarching idea for your freshmen in the high school. The concept of wellness or striving to reach optimal health levels is the cornerstone of this course, and it's exemplified by one of the course objectives, students designing their own personal fitness program. So that's what's highlighted. The concept of wellness is highlighted, but more so that the students really take ownership in their personal fitness. So you have with the movement, the student applies physiological and biochemical principles to improve warm up and whatnot. You'll see social development, again, the positive self-management, demonstrate safety procedures such as spotting during gymnastics. Explain the relationship between fluid balance, physical activity, environmental conditions such as loss of water and salt during exercise. So understanding what happens during the physical activity and why it's important for us to drink water, and why it's necessary to sweat and what happens when we sweat. Let me see. Participate in a variety of activities that develop health-related physical fitness activities such as aerobic exercise. So aerobics demonstrate skill-related components such as agility, balance, coordination, power, reaction time, and speed. And again, and they might ask you on the exam, should the teacher, or what should the teacher do in order to get the students to understand agility and balance, or coordination and balance? Well, first and foremost, direct instruction of any content specific, and this is your content, so it's content specific vocabulary that you are introducing to the students, always need to be direct instructed. For your ELL students, for special ed students, and for all students, period. Any content specific concept or term that you're using in the classroom should be defined via direct instruction of that vocabulary word and that concept, provided with a visual, given an example, etc., so that they understand those skills and concepts. List and describes the component of exercise prescription, principle, type, progression, specificity. Components of exercise prescription. So what's an exercise prescription? Overload principle. So these are ideas that you're going to have to, let's see. Exercise prescription commonly refers to a specific plan of fitness related activities that are designed for a specific purpose. So it's just like a prescription for anything else, or like a diet plan, but instead it's your exercise plan. Overload principle, if I just had to guess, would be if you overload yourself, you actually do a disservice. You have to do it incrementally and, a little bit at a time. A progression, a buildup of strength and intensity, or else you could hurt yourself. So being familiar with these terms, if the student has to be familiar with these terms, you have to be familiar with these terms, because you have to know what they are. They might ask you, when discussing the overload principle with a group of 9th grade students, Miss Sauceda decides to utilize which of the following approaches. And then, so if you don't know what the overload principle is, you're not going to be able to say which one would be the best way to hit it with your students. So let's take a look at some of the ones. Let's see. Explain myths associated. Mythology is always a very important discussion in anything, actually, just to discuss the myths and the stories that come through the grapevine, and that many times the people who most eat it up with a spoon are, you know, adolescents, prepubescents. So it's important for us to talk about how, you know, taking steroids is not a panacea to athletes, that it might give them a boost, but it's doing a lot of bad things to the body in other ways and ends up being a detriment. So, like, you know, dispelling some of those myths that come with nutritional practices or with gaining better physical activity, just, you know, giving them the truth so that they can make the best decisions later on. So I'm not saying you'll teach any of these, but because you are responsible for all of them,
Yes.
yeah, you have to know adventure outdoor education. Like, what in the world? I never had. Somebody had told me that I would have done that one for my PE course. But so for this one, same overarching idea as always. We're doing it for the foundation of enjoyment, that social development, and making that correlation between physical activity and a healthy lifestyle. Students enrolled in adventure outdoor education are expected to develop competency in outdoor education activities and provide opportunities for enjoyment and challenge. Emphasis is placed upon student selection of activities and also promote a respect for the environment, and that can be enjoyed for a lifetime. Badly written sentence. Okay, so emphasis is placed on the student choice. They're choosing what to do, and we want for them to respect the environment, meaning that if they go on a hiking trip, that they're not leaving all their trash behind or like breaking, you know, trees or bushes or disturbing it, that they're, you know, leaving nature intact while they're enjoying their healthy activity. So backpacking, boating, orienteering again, water sports, water safety certification. I guess that's even a thing. Develop an appropriate conditioning program for the activity. Hold on one moment. I'm going to get another water. Yeah, I got one. Let me check. Okay. I'm trying to look at the biggest ones that I think are because again, they're not going to ask you specifics from this, but they will utilize these concepts in the scenarios where you would be making the best choice of instruction, instructional plan or instructional activity, response, you know, to what's happening there. So like, for instance, you might be asked if you see people exhibiting bad sportsmanship, you know, you see a group of students having difficulty with sportsmanship, you know, what is the best course of action? Well, you have to rectify it. You have to address it because it's one of the biggest themes that is runs throughout this, like behave like a good person while you're in these, you know, competitive sort of sometimes high stakes situations. Trying to see safety, this is list. Okay, so this is just, you know, you doing outside stuff and identifying and talking about the different challenges, the different equipment, the different things that you would utilize in this outdoors sport thing. And I guess you would do these things with them, like maybe go canoeing or boating, because you would be doing the physical activity as well. Show evidence of developing and maintaining health related fitness, but with regards to this class. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. Aerobic activities. Students in aerobic activities are exposed to a variety of activities that promote health-related fitness. A major expectation of this course is for the student to design a personal fitness program that uses aerobic activities as a foundation piece. So that's important to remember for this one, is that you have to help the students come up with, again, that fitness prescription or that exercise prescription for themselves, but with the focus on aerobic activities. So giving them, a lot of exposure to different types of, you're doing aerobic, you're doing dance, you're doing aquatic aerobics, cycling, jogging, power walking, dancing, step aerobics. So if they are exhibiting a level of competency in 2 or more of these activities, then you are giving them opportunity to do 2 or more of these things, right? So they're doing all of these things while they're with you, and that's what you're doing with them. With everything, you're instructing them on the use of like appropriate movements, the appropriate like tools, techniques for the skill, so that they, are first and foremost safe, and that they have like that they get the most like enjoyment out of it because they're able to do it masterfully. Develop and participate in the fitness program. Describe 2 training principles appropriate for enhancing flexibility, muscular strength, endurance, and cardiorespiratory endurance. 2 training principles would enhancing flexibility would be consistency, I would imagine, right? So what are training principles? And you will have had to teach them the training principles, and then they are going to have to be able to describe at least 2 of them that are necessary in order to continue with those things. So could you think of 2 training principles appropriate for cardiovascular training? Hello?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you think of describe 2 training principles appropriate for enhancing flexibility, muscular strength, endurance, and cardiorespiratory endurance? Can you describe 2 training principles?
Enhancing flexibility. You can have them walk to get their muscles loose, and then have them stretch. They can
Yes.
stretch individually. They can stretch each other appropriately, not bending too far, out of the appropriate range
Right.
to prevent injury. Let's see.
Beautiful. That's it. Like you got it. 2 training principles like that you for sure need to stretch properly, and they are appropriate at enhancing all of those things. So the student needs to be able to do it, and then we need to be able to like teach them so that they can be able to do it. So excellent. You wanted to see if you passed the prior knowledge test, and you totally did. And then again, we have the same accept successes and performances limitations. So all throughout the thing, we want for them to be level-headed, like good sportsmen, that can take a loss or a defeat or limitation of performance and not freak out about it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, individual sports, same first paragraph. Second one is they're expected in individual sports. Right, to participate in a wide range of individual sports that can be pursued for a lifetime. The continued development of health-related fitness and the selection of an individual sport activities that are enjoyable is a major objective of this course. So you have the types of things you would be doing with them is swimming, aquatics.
Like track or maybe tennis.
Yes, track, singles, tennis, but most of the time tennis is a team sport.
It is?
Well, it is individual, but it's a team sport. Like the team plays another team, and all of our points are collective. You know what I mean? But table tennis is a self sport. So you have them listed here. Let me bring them up a little bit larger.
Like golf.
Yeah. So
bowling.
And golf is also a team sport, but it can be individual. It's listed here as individual as well. Aquatics are archery, badminton, bicycling, so bowling, gymnastics, golf, handball, racquetball, self-defense, table tennis, track and field, weight training, or wrestling. Yeah.
That's
so
interesting.
so those and identify correctly the critical elements for successful performance of a sport skill. Okay. Acknowledge good play from an opponent during competition. Accept the roles and decisions of officials. Research and describe the historical development of an individual sport. Oh, so they actually have to do research in this course. Physically active lifestyle. Let me see. Evaluate personal skills, set realistic goals for improvement, anticipate potentially dangerous consequences of participating in selected individual sports, demonstrate responsible behavior. Okay, again, the responsible behavior. Okay. Exhibit a level of competency in 2 or more individual sports. So you're giving them a smorgasbord. I guess you might do aquatics for 6 weeks, or, and do different like backstroke, whatever stroke, blah, blah, and have them, sort of like mix it up for them.
Yes, ma'am.
And the goal for them is to exhibit some level of competency in at least 2 of the ones that you provided for them. We don't have to do them all, but we do want to, and that was the same for the aerobic and for the adventure one, that wanted for them to become, to have like a level of competency in at least 2 of the ones that we provided for them. And, the team sports, students enrolled in team sports are expected to develop health-related fitness and appreciation for teamwork and fair play. Like the other high school physical education courses, team sports is less concerned with the acquisition of fitness during the course than reinforcing the concept of incorporating physical activity into a lifestyle beyond high school. And so this goes over all of, the team sports. And then again, a lot of the things that we've already covered, but they would already know all of these. They would know what guarding is or trapping by the time that they get to team sports, because we would have already provided a lesson, or the physical education teacher at the junior high would have already gone through in the 8th grade when they were getting ready for team sports. They would have started talking about all of the different verbiage with all of the different sports teams, so that everyone is familiar with it, even if they weren't going to join a team sport later, that they had some level of competency with the verbiage. So you won't spend so much time like giving vocabulary lessons. When you're doing team sports, you're going to be honing those skills that have been built, and those ideas that have been built all through the students' physical education career. And this ends particularly regularly in team sports, can identify team sports and achieve health-related fitness goals. So a lot of the ideas are repeated throughout, and the overarching idea that I hope you will have seen is that in the beginning, it's really about laying that
foundation.
safe and proper foundation for basic movements, right? So they can become more coordinated and do like hiking and orienteering, whatever that is. But yeah, providing them with solid foundation of incremental physical activity, but also building opportunities so that they grow social and emotionally in the physical education classroom, because all the way through, that's sort of something that y'all are responsible for, is getting the students, because they're responsible for doing it, which means we're responsible for getting them there, to make sure that they can deal with those conflicts, that they can resolve disputes, accept something that they might believe is unacceptable. No such thing. You will accept it if it comes down from a sports official, because that's the way that it is. So, getting them to understand those things, a big part of what it means to be a PE teacher. Also, the idea that all the way from K through 12, we should be like hammering away the lifelong pursuit of physical activity, so that we have that healthy lifestyle. We begin in kindergarten and just really hammer it away. Physical activity leads to more healthy outcome, that the students will be more apt to perpetuate that later on when they leave. And they're in their 30s or their 40s, and no one is, grading them. Did they get up and walk today? Did they go for a run? So that's one of our biggest goals. And it's the biggest goal of all teachers. We want them to become lifelong learners. And part of that is to continue, their physical activity, to continue looking for new ways to get that physical activity. And that's why I believe they created that outdoor club course, so that they could, because not everybody wants to go and play football or basketball. And sometimes that's hard on your body. So like maybe if you want to go canoeing, and it'll zen you out and you burn as many calories as if you played basketball or played football. So just giving the kids that might not otherwise have exposure to different types of physical activity that are good for you to instill in your, like as a lifestyle, is the goal or the driving purpose behind these courses. So keep that in mind. Let me bring up, I think, hold on one second. Oh my goodness. Have we been going on for, how long have we been going?
I think it's been like an hour and some change.
Yeah, I think so. Well, would you like to pause here? I will send you this and some other resources, and then we can look at some questions next time around.
Perfect.
Excellent. So I will send you the link to this with some other things as well that I'd like for you to look at. And then you tell me when are you available for the next a session? Do you want to wait until next Sunday?
Yes, please. So I can spend the week looking at all of this.
For sure, absolutely.
So I think that would work best.
Great. Okay. Well, I will send you that in an email, and then I will see you next Sunday. You did really well.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Have a good weekend.
You too. You have a beautiful rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.